All right. This morning we have Mary McCorvey, and she is an amazing woman that I met on Facebook. We actually have never
Yes,
met on
right.
in person, but I feel like
Hmm.
we're good friends after having a couple interactions online. So,
Yes.
Mary, welcome to the podcast, Creating Your Beautiful Life. We're also going to put this on the YouTube channel for those that want to watch and see our
Yes.
interaction. So,
Okay.
Mary, can you tell us a little bit about you, where you're from, maybe a brief version of your experience with kidney transplant, your kidney transplant story? So, tell us a little bit.
Sure, absolutely. First of all, let me say that I am so excited to be here, and this is just an amazing experience to be able to talk about this. I grew up in Mississippi, so I like to say a Southern girl. And when I was, growing up, that was when I initially found out that I had diabetes, which was at the age of 13. And so, during that time, that was let's see, it was a very interesting journey because being a preteen at that age and, having a solid foundation with my family, and I am the youngest girl of six siblings. So I have a younger brother, and we were the only two siblings at the house at that time. But, my older brothers and sisters, they were grown and gone at that point. But, growing up in Mississippi, at that time, there were a lot of limitations in terms of healthy living. You had to do a lot of researching. And keep in mind, guys, this was back in the 80s. So I'm telling my age, right? This was back in the 80s, and we weren't as sophisticated as we are now with having a lot of different food choices. It wasn't like you could just go on the internet and search, diabetes, food plans, and different things like that. And so my mom and my dad were very traditional in terms of making sure that we had breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We weren't the family that had my mom, let me say it like this. My mom wasn't the one to have cakes and cookies around the house, but at the same time, growing up and knowing what I know now, it's not just about the cakes and cookies. To
Mhm.
have a healthy lifestyle, it's all of the things, fried foods and, heavy starches and not exercising. So all of those things were things that over the years kind of shaped my adult life. And I'm going to be very honest with you.
Yeah.
There were times when the diabetes was not my friend, and I had a doctor who said that when I was very young, she said that diabetes would treat you the way that you treat it. And it made a lot of sense. When I was on top of it, even going into college, you have to adjust to different ways of eating and all of that. And so when I was on top of the diabetes, there were no issues. But then when I wasn't, when I got caught slipping or snacking a little bit too much, it did make a difference. And so I lived with diabetes for 31 years. That's a long time to have to check your blood sugars and, do a lot of things or restrict yourself from having all fun with eating. It was a different way of living. And then being a young person, I say that it might have been a catch because I was young enough to be able to frame my brain,
Mhm.
but I was also young enough to have those thoughts of, well, I want to eat cheesecake. I want to eat all of this. Like, why, God? Everybody else is eating and doing all the things that they want to do. And I want to do those things too.
Yeah.
So sometimes you would get caught in those internal battles of, okay, well, but I also want to live. I'm too young and I want to live. So growing up, type 1 diabetes was the thing that I battled with the most. However, when I moved to Texas, and I should have said I'm an educator. So I was a public school teacher for, well, I say this is my Kobe year. So I'm just finishing my 24th year in education. I've been a teacher, I've been a department chair, now I'm an instructional specialist. So I like to say I teach the teachers, right? And so even in that aspect, stress plays a lot with health, right? Not just with
Right.
diabetes, but just with health in and of itself. So at some point, I also found out that I had chronic kidney disease. And at this point, I was in my mid 30s, and no one in my family had had issues with diabetes or chronic kidney disease for the most part. And so that was a different challenge. That was to me, I think learning that I had chronic kidney disease was probably a little bit scarier than diabetes at that point,
Yeah.
because all I knew about chronic kidney disease was dialysis. And I
Yeah.
was thinking, I don't want to do dialysis. I don't want to do that.
Mhm.
But and then when I found out that I had chronic kidney disease and got with the right doctor and the right medical team, I was already in stage 4.
Wow.
And it was like, okay, well, what do I do now? I have chronic kidney disease, I have diabetes, the blood pressure issue was there.
Mhm.
You always have to check your eyes and your heart. And then at some point, I found out that I had MGUS, which leads to, and MGUS is monoclonal, and I'm probably going to butcher the name, but it's monoclonal gammopathy unspecified. And monoclonal gammopathy is a protein that can trigger leukemia, multiple myeloma, or something else, right? Or it can stay stable, which is the MGUS.
Yeah.
I didn't even know this, but
Mhm.
that came about because during the whole transplant journey or the pre-transplant journey, of course, we had to do oncologist reports and hematology and all of that. And so I hadn't even heard of MGUS. I didn't know what that was until my nephrologist was like, your blood report looks like that of an 80-year-old person. There's a lot of toxic things in here. And I'm thinking, what? So that was another trigger. And I'm like, okay, like I'm not even 40 yet. God, what is going on right now?
It's so funny
So,
because when I was 31, when I got my first diagnosis and like my first bloods back that told me that I had kidney disease, I was like,
yeah,
hopefully they just got this mixed up. And this is like some 80-year-old
this
old
is
man that already knows he's really sick because this doesn't make sense because I'm 31.
right. Yeah, like what are we doing right now? So all of that was just in there, right? And so finally, there was this point where when I finally got the report about the kidneys, and I was thinking, okay, God, I had a fit. I'm gonna be very honest, Shelby. I had a 30-something-year-old temper tantrum because I was like, I eat right and I've had diabetes and God, they said I can't have children. And what else do you want from me? I literally had that moment. And then I think at some point I just had to like get up and keep it going, right? And so when I got the
I
blood report,
stop you for just a second because
mhm,
like let's talk about that moment for a minute because that I mean
yeah,
when you're saying you're going to be honest, I mean it is honestly such a challenging place to be.
it
And
is.
it's a
Mhm.
place where I think that a lot of people we resist it so much. We don't want to be in that place. We don't want to be throwing the
No,
temper tantrum. But
right.
I really think that there's not really a way to get back up sometimes
Hmm.
until you do have the pity party. Like you do let
Yes.
all of it out. Like,
Right,
can you
right,
speak to
right.
that a little bit?
Right. I definitely can because like I said, I had that moment. Like with the diabetes, that was just a part of my life. I had to make sure that I had all of my candies and all of the things that I needed, and just in case, right? And
Yeah.
to be honest with you, there were people at my job that didn't know that I even had diabetes because I didn't want that to appear to be a flaw
Yeah.
because everything about Mary had to be perfect, right? That was just how I lived my life. And so there were people who didn't know that I had it. And then I got to that point of vulnerability where when I did get that report about the kidneys, it was like, okay, one more thing, like I'm done. I feel like I've done a good job. I'm using air quotes of trying to hide when I didn't feel good. I would go to my office or I would try to play it off. And I remember having maybe 2 or 3 good friends who said, you're not doing a good job of hiding it anymore. Like they can look and tell that I wasn't feeling my best. And so that was a point of, okay, I have to let it go, right? And now when I had first started letting it go and letting people know and letting people help me, then I get this report about the kidneys. And I was like, I'm not ready for this. I don't want to have dialysis. I was stuck on the dialysis moment. And then the next report that I got, I think that was the point, like you just said, where I got it together. So when I got the report about the MGUS, that was when I said, okay, God, I still remember where I was. I was on 610 in Houston, driving from Texas Oncology. And I said, okay, God, here I am in my car, same location in my car. And I said, I can't do anything about this. And I want this to be an act of God. And I think that was the moment of turning around. Like I've had my pity party. And trust me, there were others that came
Right.
after that.
Yes.
But I think when I got that report and I settled in my spirit, and I was like, okay, like I can't do anything about this, but God, I need you to let this be an act of God. And I think for me, that was the point of, okay, I teach about faith. I teach kids about faith. I talk about faith in God. But here I am breaking down and losing my faith because I don't have any control over this. So you do get to that point of weakness. But I think the thing about the point of weakness is you don't want to stay there. Going back to your previous podcast about being resilient, you don't want to stay there because that can impair your health just as much as not eating right.
Yeah. Isn't it so
For
funny?
your health. Yes, yes, yes. So that's pretty much the gist of the pre-transplant phase.
Yeah.
Um, when I had the transplant, it kind of hit like all of a sudden. I really wasn't ready. We had talked about it, and I had gone through all of the stages of getting ready, had gone through the pre-transplant phase, and I was up for a double transplant. So not only do I have the kidney transplant, I was able to get a pancreas transplant. And so that hit on April 1st, 2019. And I can proudly say that I am healed. So
Ooh.
I do not have diabetes anymore, and I don't have chronic kidney disease. And the MGUS is gone.
Oh, it's incredible.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely incredible.
Yes, to God be all the glory. That was just an amazing experience because it was so fast. I think that point of surrender that I had a point of surrender. And like I said, it came in stages. Like, okay, I'm gonna do what I need to do, starting to get in taking better control of what I was eating and resting and always being on top of my medications. But that point of, okay, God, I remember having a conversation with God and I said, I, if you choose to heal me through a transplant, or if you choose to allow me to live with this, I have 31 years of proof from me that you've kept me. So I think that was the moment when I said, okay, because the doctors were saying you might not be able to get a pancreas transplant or either or.
Mhm.
So you have to be ready to make that decision. So when we went in, my best friend went with me to the overview.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I just want to hear what they're going to tell me because I don't know what to do, God. Like, I don't know what to do. I want both of them, but I don't know what to do. And the decision had been made because when we walked in and they were going through the whole preliminary the discussion, the doctors were like, so who's in here for the double transplant? And my best friend and I looked at each other and it was like, I think that's me. So it was that point of surrender when I was like, I don't want to have to choose because if I choose, then I'm going to choose based on what I want because I'm not big enough to see what's around the corner, right? And that's when I had to have that moment of, I'm just going to stop trying to make all the decisions and stop trying to be in control of this because I'm not smart enough to make this decision. God, I need you to make this decision for me. And he did. He did.
Yeah, I often think about this analogy of the river, and
Yes.
sometimes as we're flowing down the river, we like are trying to make the decisions and we try to paddle upstream and it's really
Yes.
hard. And then when we kind of relax into that, surrender into the flow of the river,
Yes.
things like it's not like stuff gets easier, but it does. Like it's like
Yeah.
even though it's hard, like this is where I'm meant to go.
Yes,
And
yes.
I also have noticed too, like just going down the river doesn't, like I said, doesn't make it easy. There's still rocks in the river. There's
Oh,
trees that have
yes.
fallen in. Like all of a sudden you
Right,
feel like you're slowing down, but it doesn't mean you're going the wrong direction. Just might
right.
you might it means you might be redirected around that obstacle, but you're still
Yes,
trusting and surrendering into the plan
yes.
that's for your life.
Absolutely, absolutely. So it's been a great journey. And I say great because I'm not going to complain. Like you said, there were times that I didn't feel my best,
Yeah.
especially after the transplant. I had to
Yeah.
be hospitalized twice,
Yep.
because
Me
I
too.
had fevers. Yes, I had those god
Different.
awful
Yeah.
fevers and Red blood cells were out of control at some point, and
Yep.
then, just the different changes in our bodies being transplant warriors, that, our bodies had to readjust to organs that we weren't born with. And
Exactly.
so even in that process, it was like, okay, Lord, um, did you really? Because this doesn't feel good, when you get to those moments of, well, it's too late now, like they're here. So
I know. I had a moment too where I was like, do I say yes? Like when they called me. And as I was doing it, I was just like, is this what it was supposed to be? Is this how it felt
yeah,
like it was supposed to be? But
what are
okay,
we
it's too
doing?
late now. Like this is it. We're dealing with this now. And ultimately,
Right.
it's been the right decision, obviously. But
Yes.
in the moment,
Yes.
even you still have some questions sometimes. You're like,
Right. What is going on? What is going on? But I wouldn't change a thing.
right.
Like I said, I can look back and I can, say like I celebrated 3 years on April 1st. And so I still look back and I'm like, Lord, you brought me from so many almost dying situations, so
Yes.
many times when well, not so many times, but several times when I passed out
Mhm.
because my sugar dropped
Yeah.
and I could hardly tell you what my name was. Situations where I had to be very mindful of expenses because I had three chronic health situations,
Yes.
and being an educator, people don't go into education because of the money.
Nope.
Yeah. So even things like, that and, being so grateful for my parents who taught me, how to have faith and, still promoted healthy lifestyle. And for my siblings who, were like, okay, Mary, what do you need? My friends who wouldn't take, I'm okay, and deflecting, they wouldn't take that. Like, okay, what's really going on? I can look into your eyes and tell your sugar is low. You know,
Mhm.
like, can I drive you to the doctor? Those are the kinds of things that I'm looking back over my life and I'm thinking, I'm grateful for even those moments now. I wasn't probably as grateful then, but now when I look back and I'm like, that was 32 years of God's grace in my life.
Yes.
God's grace keeping me from having an accident or not waking up because I went into a coma. All of those things. So really the resilience is a very, very important thing. Having faith, having hope, don't let go of your faith. Those are things that can sound cliche, but when you're in it and you recognize that people might be watching you because you profess your Christianity, those are the things that you have to, like, not I, but God. Those
Yes.
are the things that we have to hold on to.
And it's so fascinating too, because in the last episode of the podcast, I was talking about Brene Brown's book, The Gift of Imperfection. And she
Yes.
kept having these stories that she was compiling for the research. And
Mhm.
what she had found out about the people with resiliency, like I talked about in the last podcast, is that they were
Yes.
grounded in spirituality.
Yes.
And it
Yes.
didn't necessarily mean like a certain religion, but just this belief that we're all connected
Mhm.
and this grounded in a loving God that is grounded in compassion and love.
Yes.
I was just so
Yes.
fascinated by that because the more that I speak to people about their experiences, especially with chronic illnesses, near death
Mhm.
experiences with our illnesses,
Mhm.
there is this connectedness of feeling this spirituality of feeling connected to something bigger than us.
Yes, absolutely.
I think you're just such a beautiful living example of that, of seeing that spirituality and having that groundedness throughout your entire
Yes.
journey. So beautiful.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. It's a journey, like you said. And um, we connected on Facebook because I decided that I wanted to do a 5K. So the funny part about it is when I was a diabetic, I love saying when I was, right? When I
Ooh,
was a
give me chills.
diabetic, for my church, I was the team captain for the American Diabetes Association's walk. And so the team was called Walking for, Faith for a Cure Walkers. And so we did that for maybe 3 years. And so now here comes Southwest Transplant Alliance. I'm in Texas. I live in Houston, Texas. And so all things Texas right now, right? And so I don't know how I connected with them.
Mhm.
But I got an email about Southwest Transplant Alliance. It's probably on Facebook or Instagram. Maybe that's how it was.
Uh-huh.
And they were having a 5K last year in 2020. And
Mhm.
so the organization is based out of Dallas, Texas.
Okay.
And of course, all things COVID last year, everything was virtual or remote. And so I said, well, I think I want to do this, but I'm not going to run it. I'm just going to walk it because we always walk for the diabetes walk. And so the funny part about it was I placed first, no, I got fastest time for a recipient. And I'm thinking, I didn't even train for this. I just wanted to do it, right? So I said, well, if I got fastest time for a transplant recipient and I didn't train, I wonder what would happen if I actually trained for it. So I started training for it in maybe late February, March, right? And I got a trainer. I'm not a runner. Everyone who knows me knows that Mary does not run, right? She wears heels all the time. She is not a runner. I'll work out, but that's about it. And
Uh-huh.
so this year I was like, well, I have to defend my title. I have to make my time faster. So I decided this year on my name tag, I ran it and I got a trainer. But the thing that helped me to persevere through it was the fact that I decided to on the back of my name tag to list the names to list the names of people. I'm sorry, Shelby, we weren't
Okay, you're gonna make me cry too.
but I decided to list the names of people, friends, family members who were donors or recipients. And I did an interesting thing. I named my organs after my parents. So my kidney is named Raymond after my dad, who I lost in the process of recovering from the transplant. And my mom, I lost her. We lost her in 2005. Well, she's my pancreas. So I listed them because I have not been able to meet the parents or the family of my donor yet, right? And so I named my organs after my parents. And so I listed the names of the individuals who I have been connected with. Like you talked about, there's a connection there, right? And I ran it this time. I mean, I did a lot of walking, but I still ran it. So I was just so excited. And so went in the group, the kidney group that we're a part of on Facebook. And I talked about, hey, this was my first time. And so that's how you and I connected. And you're
Yes.
like, I would like to talk to you. So that in and of itself has charged me up. Like, I think some of the things that I've learned through this process is number one, listen for God's voice.
Yeah,
You
totally.
have to just in the big picture, listen for his voice. Like you have to listen for his voice like your life depended upon it.
Yep.
Because I wonder if I had said, that's not God, or if I had decided to do something a different way, it would have been a whole different situation, right? And I don't want to burden the Holy Spirit by turning a deaf ear to what he's trying to urge me to do. And I'm also learning how to just honor life and not be as afraid as I was.
Yeah. Yes.
I
I heard this.
enjoy,
I had heard this quote this week that was like, life is for living.
yes,
I'm like every
yes,
day.
yes, 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 yes. And that's how, because I think about my donor and the fact that this young man decided to gift others through the gift of organ donation. And that's something that doesn't get talked about a lot. And I think, of course, being a part of the 5K was an opportunity to make awareness of it. Even last year, this was another thing. Last year, my church did a day of service. And so, because it was COVID and it was our church's anniversary, and so we did things on the parking lot of the church, right? And to my surprise, there was a person who was there asking for people to sign up for the organ donation. And I was like, this is amazing. So I went and I took a picture with them and I posted it on my Facebook and my Instagram. And one of my friends decided to become a donor. Isn't that amazing?
Oh,
Just through
wow.
that experience. And so I think it's an awesome thing when you have people who have gone through the process that we've gone through,
Mhm.
and something like organ donation can live because someone makes the decision to make that donation. So I'm still learning. I'm still learning how to find some balance. I still don't know how to sit down.
Right? I want to go back really, really quick to something that you said about
Yes.
having those names on the back. Was it on a bib or was it on a shirt? What was it on?
It was on our bib. So they sent you the name
So
tag with the sponsors, and I had one side that had donors, and I had one side that had recipients.
And so I'm so struck by that because that was one of the things that really attracted me to you, like on that Facebook
Yes.
group is just this woman that's out there that's making something really cool out of, you know, a lot of people would consider this, our situation, your situation, a very difficult thing to have gone through.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
you're like, no, I'm going to be out there and running for the people that can't,
Yes.
and being
Yes.
that example of what's
Right.
possible.
What's
And
possible.
it's so amazing. And I, you know, I think about my donor too. We connected like right after I had finished I ran a triathlon a few weeks ago, and we
Yeah.
we connected
Yeah.
right after that. And
Mhm.
as I was running too, I kept thinking, I'm doing this because he can't. My kidney donor,
Yes.
he's not here, but
Right.
part of him is still here. And so
Yes.
it's just this beautiful connection. I feel like and it's that, and also I'm like, we think about it, it's the spirituality too, like we're
Yeah.
connected to these people
Mhm.
because of their altruism, because of, you know, they went through this great tragedy, and so
Yeah.
I'm choosing to live a really full and amazing life, and I get to
Yes.
be part of that too, because they can't, but I can. And that's, it's something to choose to go and run and to get a trainer and to go do a 5K.
Yes.
That's a choice, and most people don't
It
do that.
is. It is. It is. It's such a choice. And like I said, I am not a runner. I will walk all day long. And now the funny part of it is I look forward to getting on my treadmill and running just
Uh-huh,
because, right?
uh-huh.
So you're right. I think that that was a part. And then the beautiful part of it is that I had some friends who joined me on the track just to kind of support me. And one of them was is a donor. She
Mhm.
donated to her brother who had lupus, who was suffering from lupus. And so to see her, and now she's like, we need to get out here. She texted her brother, and she was like, because I listed his name and I listed her name. We're co-workers. And so she said, we're doing this next year. We're gonna be out here with you. And so even in that, you know, that in and of itself is another opportunity to witness, to be alive, you know, to help people to understand, like you said, life is for the living, and it's for living, and just to find a way to, for me, is to find a way to give God glory.
Mm.
And even on the high points of that journey and on that the trail, when it got tough, like there was a moment when I was like, God, you have to help me. I can't run like this.
Yes, yes.
But
I also did that.
yes, yes, like, "This is too much, you have to help me finish." But there was also that moment when I started thinking about my 19-year-old who would be 21 if, you know, if I did the math right. He would be 21, 22, and I'm thinking, "Okay, God, you know, I'm running for him. I'm
Mhm.
running for Erica. I'm running for Nicolette. I'm running for the people whose names are on my back. So you have to help me finish this because I can't do it. Like, I'm not even supposed to be out here. It's hot."
Right?
But it was truly a beautiful experience for me because I, again, you know, that connection. I haven't met his family, but in that moment, I kept thinking, he's not here. So I have to finish this. I could have gone down that hill and I was like, it's only 3 miles, but it was 3 miles for me. And then the other connection that I had was 3 years ago when I had diabetes. I could have done it, but there would have been so many other factors that I would have had to contend with, like, is my sugar going to drop? And, you know, I have to check my sugar. And what if I get out here and I fall out? Because that's happened before. Or what if, right?
Right.
And now I didn't have to suspend my pump. Now I didn't have to do the things and, you know, that I would have had to do prior to having received a new pancreas because my pancreas works now. you know?
That's incredible.
So that
So
part
important.
is the part that I kept thinking of, okay, so Lord, I can't be foolish in this because there was a time when I had so many other things that I could have had to deal with.
Mhm.
But running was never something that I wanted to do because I could have fallen out because my shoe could have gotten low. That's the excuse,
Right,
right?
right.
Yes, but it's been beautiful. It's been so beautiful.
Oh, that's amazing, Mary. Okay, just before we go, I want to ask you one last question, and that is, what do you think you would share with someone? Pretend that they are where you were
Yes.
maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Mhm.
Like from what you've learned, what would you share with them if they're like worried about their health, worried about their future? What piece of advice would you give to them?
Definitely number one, don't give up your faith.
Yeah.
If you are a believer in Jesus Christ, you have to hold on to your faith. And that sounds very cliche, but again, like my experience was I teach this. I talk to people about my faith, right?
Mhm.
So I would always encourage someone who is having health issues to number one, don't give up your faith. We have to start there.
Yeah.
Um, I would also encourage them to be very mindful of your environment. You can support your health by making changes to the way that you eat, the way that you choose to live your life. I would like to say that I've always been pretty much a healthy eater.
Yeah.
And I think when I really, really dove deeper into making sure that, like, I gave up meat
Mhm.
again because God was pushing me. I need you to give up meat. And I'm thinking, why would I give up meat? But I see the response on the other side of that, right? And so now that I am living a vegan lifestyle, I think that that's helping me to feel better. And so I'm not telling anybody out there,
Right.
hey, give up. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that.
I'm
And
not
I'm
either.
saying,
Do what you feel led to do. Exactly
do
that.
what you feel led to do. But I'm just saying, for me, I think being conscious of what I did eat in my journey and making sure that I was very cognizant of my medication and exercising, I think that that made a big difference for me.
Yes.
And I would also encourage them to just continue to live your life,
Yes.
live it as if you are already healed.
Ooh, that's powerful.
Yeah, live it as if you're already lived to the best extent possible. I know that there are some things that we have to be mindful of, right? But live it as if you are already healed. Like the Bible tells us, speak those things that are not as though they've already happened.
Yeah.
And so if you're declaring that you are healed, then live it. Live your life as if you're already healed. And that will help you to stay grounded in God. Like it will help you to be ready to expect.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I love everything that you've shared today. It's been such
Mhm.
an honor to have you on the podcast. I'm sure we'll have you back because we have many more conversations to have.
Yes, I'm
But
so excited.
I will say that there is something to be said about the pieces of advice that you give
Mhm,
with the angle that you come from. You're not
mhm.
somebody that's just like saying these platitudes that it's just like, oh, just like, think that everything's going to be okay and it'll be okay. I'm like,
Right.
no, you've been through it. You've been through the brink. And these are the things that helped you to heal from that.
Yes,
Like you got to
yes,
you really
absolutely,
consider the source. You've been through it. So it's really
absolutely.
incredible to hear that.
Yes.
All right. Thanks so much, Mary.
Thank you, thank you. You guys have a great day and just continue to just live your life as if you're already healed.
Love it. All right. Have a good one, everybody.
Okay.